Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I am one of your hosts, Zach, and joining me as always is a sick Aaron Kappa.
It's true. I did get COVID last week. That's why we skipped the episode. My first time getting COVID. I waited all the way until 2023 to check it out. But my rating is that it is bad.
You give this one a low grade.
Low grade. It's not going to make our top 10 builder, I'll tell you that.
That's a shame. Well, I mean, as far as colds go, does it rank pretty high up there for you?
I mean, and as far as like severity, it was pretty severe. I had all the symptoms. I had a fever, I had chills, I coughed a bunch, I blew my nose a bunch, I had some achy joints, whatnot. But it's pretty much now just I have a slightly deeper voice and I'm clearing my throat sometimes. So you may hear that on the cast, and that's a little inside baseball. I am getting over COVID. That's why you hear me clearing my throat.
I will try as much as I can to edit a lot of that out. But yeah, we'll see. When I'm pretty sure I had it. I did not test myself, but I'm pretty sure I had it because like maybe a couple months ago, I got sick and I was like feeling under the weather for like a solid week. And then after that, it was like messing with my sense of like taste and smell there for like maybe 2 weeks afterwards. So I'm pretty sure that was COVID because you don't normally get that with like the flu or some other kind of cold.
Yeah. But where do you think you got it? Did you hang out with in a big crowd or something?
This was around the time I went to apply at some hospital. So
well, there you go.
I'm pretty sure it's tied directly to that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah. Anyway, we do have a stacked show. Lots of news. Also, we have been playing more Starfield, and we have played the new indie puzzle game Cocoon, which I'm very excited to talk about because I have finished it, and you were very close to the end of it.
I'm very, very close. Yeah, I just had to stop last night, but I'm You said that I told you where I was, and you said I'm basically like 90% there.
Yeah, you're very close. So yeah, very exciting stuff with this the Microsoft leak. I mean, not exciting for Microsoft, but exciting for everyone else that gets to sort of look forward to things. Although I guess not exactly how you'd want it to happen. You kind of want it to be introduced at some showcase where you're like, oh man, can you believe they're gonna have a remake or a remaster of Oblivion? But we'll get into that. Let's start off with Sony Interactive Entertainment President and CEO Jim Ryan announced he's going to retire in March of 2024. This kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And surprised a lot of people.
He's been there for like 20 years or something, right? Or like 18 years?
I think it was 30 years.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so he like had a statement as a part of this like news release from Sony Interactive. And he talked about how like he's had a great time. He's really loved working there, but he lives in Europe and he's been working in North America, and he has found it increasingly difficult to keep that up, which makes sense. I feel like you'd be flying back and forth all the time. So I guess good on him for keeping it up for so long and doing a great job while keeping that travel schedule up. But it seems like it makes sense that he would want to like dial back on the travel and maybe spend time with family, especially after having worked there for 30 years. So
yeah.
And then a bummer piece of news: Epic Games has laid off 800 employees. That's
pretty crazy. It's a giant
16%. Yeah, 16% of its workforce, 830 employees out of a job with Epic. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like we always think of Fortnite as being such a juggernaut that you wouldn't think something like this could happen at Epic. But the statement that they had was, for a while now, we've been spending way more money than we earn investing in the next evolution of Epic and growing Fortnite as a metaverse-inspired ecosystem for creators. And who is this? Epic president Tim Sweeney was saying this. He said, I had been long optimistic that we could power through this transition without layoffs, but in retrospect, I see that this was unrealistic. So they did also, they divested Bandcamp. I don't know if you use Bandcamp at all, but
not really.
I like that website a lot. I've bought some records off of it and bought some digital albums from there. I follow a bunch of like indie outfits and bands and people that make like synthwave style music, and there's all kinds of stuff on there. And it does concern me a little that Bandcamp might eventually go away with all of this like trading hands, and I'm worried that the digital library that I've built up there, or even like potential like finding future music or being able to like easily get your hands on like a vinyl album from somebody that you follow, that just will like go away if Bandcamp sort of goes under. But hopefully that is not the case.
Did you see that? This isn't in our show notes, but I think Letterboxd just got acquired.
Oh, did it? No, I did not see that.
I don't remember by who, but they promised very few changes to the platform.
Well, that's what they always say.
Yeah. So let's dive into this. There's a couple key things to take away from this Xbox leak that's pretty interesting, this Microsoft leak. Namely, it does seem like the next Elder Scrolls is going to pull a Starfield and not be available on PS5 or whatever. It's probably still going to be PS5 in 2026, but it's coming no sooner than 2026. And who knows what sort of development cycle it's going to be on. I predict probably it will be past 2026 by the time we see this thing.
I was going to say, I have my doubts that this game is going to come out in 2026.
But another interesting piece is that, we mentioned it earlier in the show, there's going to be an Oblivion remaster, which I'm very interested in. I think both of us, that was our first Elder Scrolls game, right?
I think maybe I played Fallout 3 first and then went back and played Oblivion, but yeah, it was very early for me.
I think I would check that out. I have a lot of nostalgia for Oblivion. The music, to me at least, is even more iconic than the Skyrim music.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think about that music all the time. And there's so much crazy stuff in Oblivion that is not available in Skyrim. Like, you could become the Gray Fox or whatever. That was a cool mechanic.
I think a lot about that Sheogorath DLC. What was that called?
Yeah.
Shivering Isles.
Yeah.
I think is what it was.
I never played any of the DLC, actually.
See, I played the DLC for Oblivion and didn't really play much of the DLC for Skyrim, even though I think I hold Skyrim way higher in my recollection than Oblivion, even though I liked Oblivion. But yeah, it would be cool to go back and re-experience Fallout 3 and Oblivion remastered. I'm curious as to how much those are being sort of remade within that remaster, or if it's just like a straight sort of a little bit of a visual facelift and then released onto modern consoles.
Yeah, how much work are they actually going to put into it? If it's just a facelift, I guess I would still probably check it out, but it would give me a little bit of pause. But if they were like, we've painstakingly recreated this, and there's like, we re-recorded some dialogue and we did these like fixes and things, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, like
because definitely there are some quality of life things they could add to Oblivion to make it a lot more palatable.
For sure, yeah. I wonder about that with both. I wonder, like, will you be able to aim down sights in Fallout 3 when that remaster comes out? Things like that. Yeah, I would love a full-on remake of both of those games, but even if it's like a remaster that's sort of somewhere in between, like the Red Dead remaster that they just released and like the full-on remake of like Dead Space, just somewhere in the middle there would even be nice. But
so let's circle back to this new Elder Scrolls game. We don't really know what it is or where it's at. We got that one trailer like 3 years ago or something. It seems to be on a coastal city. Having played a good amount of Starfield now, what do you think? How are they going to iterate on this? Like, what do you think they're going to add to a new Elder Scrolls game to make it interesting?
That's a very good question.
It seems like they have ships figured out. I wonder if they would incorporate airships.
Airships, that would be very interesting. I wonder
where
if
you could like drop around, and because the customization aspect of building your ship in Starfield I found to be very fun, and I feel like they get that it's fun and they want to incorporate that. I just don't know how you would do that in a fantasy setting other than
I
like
could
maybe
almost
a
see
house.
them doing more of a like sea vessel version of that.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe they allow you to sort of build a custom galleon of some sort, and you could sail that around. And I do wonder if they will finally port like some sort of settlement creation thing to Elder Scrolls, because they've had that in Fallout, and now you have some sort of outpost building in Starfield. So I could see them doing that sort of thing.
What if it's set in some sort of archipelago where it's just like a series of islands and you're just like sailing around? That's actually very interesting.
Yeah, you'd be sailing around from island to island, and you could like sort of build up your own island, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I could see them doing something like that now that we have sort of, Starfield as like a space version of that.
A template.
Yeah. Now, it is worth noting that Phil Spencer said, like, obviously some of the info in this leak is like 3 years old, so some of these plans have changed. I feel like the leak really hurts them because they almost would have to feel like they are locked in now. Like they have to produce a Fallout 3 and Oblivion remaster, and like they don't have to stick to the timetable for Elder Scrolls 6, because I mean that's not likely to land when they said it was going to land at this point. But they definitely are going to just release this on Xbox and PC, so no PS5/6, depending on when this comes out. But
so the other aspect of this is there's hardware related content. They supposedly are going to come up with a mid generation, not like a pro version, but it's going to be, what is this more similar to? Like a slim, I guess?
Yeah, I guess you could refer to this as a slim.
It looks like a Series X, but it's a circle instead of
and it does
cube.
not have a disk drive.
No disk drive, but it does have 2 terabytes of storage. And in addition to that, it's going to have a new controller that has an accelerometer in it somehow. Yeah, which is interesting.
Basically, Xbox is finally sort of making their answer to the DualSense. It's supposed to have like the motion control stuff that you get with the DualSense and the haptics of the DualSense, but probably without the adaptive triggers, which is cool. I love the DualSense, and I would love to see like an Xbox version of this. I probably will pick one of these up when they come out.
I probably will too, yeah. Because another great thing about this is I'm pretty sure it has a rechargeable battery in it, as opposed to regular Xbox controllers, which are just regular batteries.
They did say removable rechargeable battery, which is exactly what I wanted to hear from them as far as like a new controller goes.
It's got a cool 2-tone design, at least it does in these documents, where it's like half white on, I think, the bottom.
Yeah, it's like a gloss. It's like a glossy white part that goes sort of across the middle of the controller, where like the thumbsticks and D-pad and the face buttons are, and then like the handles on the bottom are like it look to be like a textured black type of thing, like maybe on the back of the current Series X controller, and then like the shoulder buttons and triggers on the top look to also be black. But it's kind of an interesting look, sort of the Stormtrooper look.
Yeah, it is kind of Stormtrooper, but
so the interesting question here is, because they're going all digital with the refresh of the Series X, does that like indicate next Xbox console generation all digital?
They would love it, I'm sure.
So I heard, I don't know if this is like the right number, but the thing I heard was that the Series S basically accounted for like 75% of the sale, like an absurdly high percentage of the sales for this current generation of Xbox consoles, which means it's a little bit like, I think Microsoft might be taking away the wrong thing from the sales of this generation. because to them, they would love to get rid of the disc drive. They would love to go all digital and have people, because they're famously, he talked about losing the last generation, which was huge because it was where people were building their digital libraries.
Yeah.
But also, you know, the gaming industry has been trying to get rid of the secondhand market for a long time, which would effectively happen if both PlayStation and Xbox went, you know, all digital.
Yeah.
But with the Series S being all digital and that making up such a huge majority of their sales, I feel like people buy physical copies of games on the Switch and on the PlayStation, but nobody buys physical games on an Xbox because they get it for Game Pass.
It's true. And also, I mean, the Series S is considerably cheaper is the other thing.
Well, yeah. So the reason I think the sales were so much more higher for the Series S than the X was because of the whole situation with the pandemic and the chip shortage and the shipping crisis and all of this. And the fact that you could literally during all of that time still walk into your Target or Best Buy and pick up a Series S because they were on store shelves, or you could order one online. Whereas you could not get a PS5 or a Series X.
Until quite recently.
Yeah, still relatively recently that those became more readily available. So, yeah, I think that's why I think Microsoft is maybe taking the wrong thing away. Like, I think their takeaway is, people want Game Pass, which they do, but people want all digital. They don't care about the disc drive is what I think they're taking away. And what I think the takeaway is, you guys got lucky that the Series S bailed you out of a really rough time in the world. I think it would be a bummer if the next console generation didn't have a disc drive, because you're sort of leaving behind like some people that still have like their physical 360 games for backwards compatibility. And granted, that's like multiple generations old by now, but the fact that you could still pop in a disc, I hope they don't completely abandon that, but they might. I was listening, I forget which show it was, but one of their like listeners wrote in and had a comment about how like Nintendo and PlayStation have customers, like loyal customers, and Microsoft, like the Xbox, has subscribers. And is that affecting this whole idea of like building your digital library? Because if you bought a Series S specifically to use as a Game Pass box, I feel like it's not a rough time to just like turn around and go, okay, I'm a PlayStation person now.
Yeah,
because you haven't bought anything on Xbox. You've only downloaded stuff off of Game Pass.
You're just renting it.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if you own a bunch of physical games on PlayStation, or if you own digital games on PlayStation, like you're pretty locked in.
Yeah.
So I don't know that even with Game Pass, as good a deal as it is, and as much as we like Game Pass and think it's a great deal, it's also maybe hindering the brand loyalty that you would get through, you know, having your services set up the way the PlayStation's is. I don't know. Maybe that's just me and I'm reading the wrong thing into it.
I think you're right. I think that's dead on.
There was also a statement that was leaked from Xbox where Phil Spencer talked about like getting Nintendo and that being a career moment. But I think the general consensus of this is more like internally they were like, well, what if we tried to get Nintendo? And Phil Spencer was just like, yeah, that'd be great. It would be a career moment, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, he didn't bring it up. It was just some dumb board member who was like, Nintendo is no thing I know about. What if we take that?
Yeah, while we're buying stuff, what if we bought Nintendo?
Phil Spencer basically just had to be like, yes, that would be cool. But I don't think that's viable right now.
Yeah. Famously, like in the early 2000s, when like the original Xbox was like becoming a thing, they like went to Nintendo to talk to them about buying Nintendo, and they laughed them out of the room. So yeah. I think everybody knows that is like not a thing that's going to happen. So also there is a Series S refresh, but it looks to be mostly the same to me. I don't know.
Not as exciting as the Circle
Yeah.
Xbox.
Well, and they also just released like a stealth black, like matte black version of the Series S. So people just bought that, and then this leak happened like a week later. I don't know, but I think they are supposed to both come with that new controller, so I guess that's cool. But yeah, interesting stuff from this leak. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on from that? I guess we could talk about, I think there was like a Dishonored 3 and like a sequel to Ghostwire Tokyo that was also in there.
The Dishonored 3 I'm very interested in. I need to play. I never played Dishonored 2, even though I played the heck out of the first Dishonored, and I love that game. I never played Deathloop either, but that's also on Game Pass. It's just not something I've checked out yet.
I didn't love Deathloop.
Really?
I there were parts of it I liked, but I don't know. I didn't stick like you know how you sort of play through like different scenarios, and it's sort of like, obviously it's on like a time loop or whatever. I played through all of them. I just never put them all together in one loop is the problem. But I don't generally like looping sort of roguelite style games. So I think maybe that's the bigger issue for me than the actual game itself. But
people say that Dishonored 2 is great though. And there's famously that there's like a level where you're in a house and you have like a mirror that changes the like dimension or time that you're in, that people say is a really greatly designed level. I want to go check that out again, and I'm excited for whatever it's a very cool world, the Dishonored world. It's basically Thief. And I like I love Thief classically, the old Thief, not the new ones. So I'm excited to see whatever this third game will be whenever they decide to announce it officially.
Yeah, and the sequel to Ghostwire Tokyo does interest me because I actually really liked the first Ghostwire Tokyo, but I also suspect that maybe this is like one of those premature things that were like, they had this on the docket, but sort of pending results from like sales and reception of Ghostwire Tokyo 1, and I don't think that it did well enough for them to maintain it, which is why at some point they're going to have to be like, yeah, that was canceled. But that's just what I suspect. There's no confirmation one way or another on whether that's still actually happening, but they're in a weird position now where they have this huge leak, and they're going to have to like go through it piece by piece and be like, okay, well, this is still in the works. This has been abandoned, you know, whereas before, if they never, like this never happened, they wouldn't have to address whether or not there was going to be a Ghostwire Tokyo 2.
Yeah.
I kind of hope there is. I kind of hope that there is going to be one, but tough to say whether it will actually happen now. But let's talk about Private Division announcing an upcoming sort of cozy game set in the Lord of the Rings universe that's supposed to come out next year.
Yeah, they didn't really show any gameplay of this, but it's
just a teaser trailer.
Yeah, I think it's set in the Shire.
That would make sense, yeah.
You are just going to like chill out, I guess. It's going to be, I think the pitch is like Stardew Valley type things in Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
so I didn't know What a Workshop actually made games, but because you think of them as like the people that made all the props for
special
the
effects
Lord of the Rings, but I guess they make games, and they're making a cozy game set in the Lord of the Rings universe, which is called Tales of the Shire, which you know makes so much sense to me now that I think about it. It's like, oh yeah, like why doesn't this exist?
More sense than a Gollum game for sure.
Oh, for sure, yeah. People love cozy games, and people love Lord of the Rings, so putting those two together makes a lot of sense. If you could just be a hobbit, like going around farming and stuff, and just have like the Lord of the Rings soundtrack happening in the background the whole time, that makes a lot of sense to me. The Division 3 was also very, very casually announced recently.
Yeah, just on like a sales call.
Yeah, I don't think that's how they meant to announce it, but probably an accidental reveal. Are you surprised at all by this? Because I feel like the Division 2, I think people liked that game, but I don't think it did like huge sales numbers.
I agree with that. It sort of came and went, because I feel like the first one had a very long tail, and there was a point where people were like, this is fine, but it could be better. And then
it's
really
no Destiny
worked.
is what the reception was, but
they really worked to bring it back. And Division 1 had like a very long like DLC tail, and they like reworked a bunch of stuff and people were into it. And then the Division 2 came out, and I feel like I only heard about it for maybe like a week, and then it just dropped off. I don't even know if they had DLC or not, but
I'm sure they did. Like, I'm sure they supported it just as long, but yeah, it definitely did not hit as big as Destiny. But I guess it maybe had its niche audience that kept
we played it together. We played the first one together when it came out, and I liked it. I liked the like Dark Zone aspect of it and whatnot. It was ahead of its time, kind of, because that was before like Tarkov like things, like what are the extraction shooters.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm interested to see the engine. The Snowdrop engine is very beautiful. And I wonder where they would set this one and like what time period. Because famously, the first one was in winter, and the second one was in like, I think, summer.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we would get like a fall one. That would be interesting. Or if they would maybe it would be like over the course of a year where it would have like dynamic weather.
Could be.
I don't know. It's interesting. I might check it out. The gameplay loop of it and the shooting is fun. Like I have nostalgic feelings about playing the first one. I just never picked the second one up.
I was gonna say I did enjoy our time with the first one. I just never played the second one, and I don't know if it just like came out at a wrong time for me, but I just like was not super interested in it for whatever reason.
I remember the last time we ever played the first one, we like tried to do a mission that was slightly above our level or whatever, and immediately got destroyed, and then I don't think any of us ever picked it up again.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like it as well as Destiny, I think was the thing, where I kept going back to Destiny. It was something about like the weapons and armor and the mechanics of Destiny that kept me going. And I think Division is good as well in that regard, but I also think there was a little bit of a turnoff for me that like in Destiny, it makes sense that like, you know, you're fighting these big, heavily armored aliens, and so you have to like shoot them a bunch of times to like whittle down their armor and hit them with a bunch of space magic to kill them. But in the Division, you're just like shooting a dude in a t-shirt, and it just didn't make sense to me why I was having to unload like 5 clips to kill him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There was something about that I think turned me off of the second one, even though I sort of enjoyed the first one. But
I'm interested to see how they mix up the formula in the third one.
Well, speaking of surprise, sort of very casual releases, this week Bethesda did sort of surprise drop a new Elder Scrolls game on mobile, and it's sort of a Fallout Shelter-like.
Yeah, I saw this.
But it is in like some weird early access period right now where they have like very limited amount of players that they like have allowed to download it. Like I tried going to the Play Store to see if I could download it, and it's like we've like reached capacity of this like early access thing. Unfortunately, you cannot download this if you haven't already done so. But I liked Fallout Shelter, and I back and forth on whether I like Fallout more or Elder Scrolls more. But I think maybe I like Elder Scrolls more. And so the idea of a Fallout Shelter-like game set in the Elder Scrolls universe is very interesting to me. So yeah, I would maybe check this out once it comes out.
Zach, I saw a TikTok. My TikTok algorithm knows that I like video games, so I'm constantly getting people talking about video games. And I saw this, and I don't know how legitimate it is, but it was a guy going over some supposed Far Cry leaks.
Oh, really?
He said it didn't have a setting, but it's coming fall 2025, supposedly. They're shifting engines. It's now going to be on the Snowdrop engine, which is the Division engine. They're moving away from the old engine.
Oh, that's interesting.
They also said, what would you say is the worst part of the last Far Cry game? The one set in America.
That was 2 games ago.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the
Far Cry 6.
I totally forgot about Far Cry 6.
I didn't play it, but it seemed like an improvement on Far Cry 5.
Here is supposedly the new mechanic for Far Cry 7. There is an immediate in-game timer of 72 hours, and it's constantly counting down, and you have to save a number of family members from this rich family that have been kidnapped by some organization. And the goal is to save all the family members within the 72 hours, which the timer does pause when you're in safe zones, like little saving areas. But if you fail at some of the family members living, the game drastically changes. So it's like you're able to have multiple, like vastly different playthroughs based on if you're able to save every family member. Also, I guess there's some sort of new interrogation gameplay mechanic where if you do it wrong, they'll give you wrong information. But if you do it correctly, they'll give you like information that will help you get to your goal faster. But I have to say, this all sounds awful to me.
I was going to say, this sounds like I would be very less likely to pick this one up than Far Cry 6, to be honest.
Any game that has some sort of in-game timer, I'm automatically not going to be into, because I like it's an open world. So you want the ability to just like mess around and like go hunt weird animals and stuff. So I feel like they're going in the wrong direction.
It sounds like Deathloop.
It does kind of, yeah. Except you don't get to go back a bunch. You have to like abide by the timer.
There was, to a degree, I feel like a timer in that game, but maybe it was based on like where you go. Like it would advance the day to the next afternoon or evening or whatever. But yeah, I played Pikmin 4 this year, and they arbitrarily seem to have a timer because that game is in like a weird flux state, whereas like people don't like the timer and the amount of days that you have to complete stuff. So they're like, hey, we're gonna remove the day limit, but for whatever reason we're keeping the timer. And the most frustrating, annoying part about that game was the day ticking down and you not having just the complete freedom to explore to your heart's content and collect stuff. And then you just arbitrarily, day's up, I have to go back to the hub world now. If that's like what the next Far Cry thing is going to be, I'm out on that game.
I am also out. I get a real bad taste in my mouth with Far Cry 5 because they did that thing where whenever you went into a new area, it would put you on rails basically, and you had to do this new thing. You stopped being able to solve problems how you wanted to solve them, and you had to do these like weird linear like offshoots. And I don't know, I feel like Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4 were great because you basically got to do whatever you wanted. You got a wingsuit eventually. You could tackle things however you wanted at any given time. You could just like totally forget the main story for a while and just level yourself up and like get the best wallet and like all the cool like weapon harnesses and stuff. And this to me seems like work. Anything with a timer just seems like it's going to be constantly nagging me to like, hey, better get to the main story. You better stop messing around over here. So if this is true, I think it's a huge mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to an extent that the series does need to sort of rejuvenate itself in some way, like to sort of really throw like a curveball to make people like want to come back to it. Because I feel like, I mean, I can't speak to their sales of Far Cry 6, but I feel like the excitement around the series has dwindled in a big way over the years. And it is definitely not like a premier franchise anymore. So I can understand wanting to like shake it up in some big way that would make people be like, oh, okay, this is now interesting to me. But I don't think this is the way.
The other thing I want to talk about, this is again something I got from TikTok. I got a trailer for this weird little indie game called The Last Exterminator, which basically looks like a Duke Nukem clone. It has that like nighttime city vibe that Duke Nukem has that I am very into, very nostalgic for. and you play just this exterminator who's going around killing these like humanoid bugs, and it just looks like a little fun little. It kind of looks like that Ion Maiden, or whatever it's called. What's it called now? Is it called Ion Maiden now, or do they have to change?
I think they had to change the name, but I don't remember what they changed it to.
But it's like
it looks like a boomer shooter.
Exactly. Yeah, it looks like a boomer shooter. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. And then the other thing that we'll end the news segment on, similar in boomer shooter news type things, they're adding the Doom shotgun to Warzone, and it comes complete with like super low resolution and frame rate, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah,
when you
that's
scrolled on
weird.
this, you can see a TikTok of it. You also get the chainsaw as well, but it's just like it's running at like 15 frames a second, which is just, it's an aesthetic choice. But I thought it was cool.
So the shotgun and its animations are, the rest of the game is still running at.
Yes, it's only normal. The shotgun and chainsaw are like super low frame rate. Everything else is nice and fast.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it's cool. I like it.
It's a little like that one Spider-Man animated movie.
Yes, yeah, it's like when you could get the Spider-Man skin in Spider-Man, where it made you like low frame rate and kind of jumping around.
That's a cool idea.
That was cool.
Yeah, that is a cool idea. All right, so let's talk about some games that came out this week. I don't know if you got a chance to see any of these. Party Animals came out. That looks kind of like a sort of, physics-based,
not really like my jam.
Mario Party style Fall Guys sort of thing. And then Mortal Kombat 1 came out, and I'm not really a fighting game fan, but the only thing I've heard about it is that it's really terrible on Switch. Like, it runs awful and looks terrible, and that if you want to play this game, do not play it on the Switch. And then Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty came out, the DLC. Have you watched any of this? Do you plan on picking this up at all?
You know, I have watched a lot of reviews that say, like, this is the definitive version of Cyberpunk. You should start a new game, go fresh. They've changed so much. It's like a whole new game. This is the promise that's finally coming to fruition from like the first couple trailers. And I have not looked up any story spoilers, because I think at some point I am going to return to Night City, because it seems like it is really good.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. It seems great. I just, for whatever reason, I'm not feeling called to go back into it. Maybe this is just my weird thing about not going back for DLCs, but I just have not felt motivated in any way to like pick this up again.
And the main thing that's pulling me back is you get you can unlock a different ending to the full game. And someone that was reviewing it said, like, it seems like it's the true canonical ending.
Really?
Which is very enticing to me, because the ending I got was fine, but I felt like it could have explored more and given me more closure. And I feel like this one probably does that. So
they're really pushing for you to start a new game and like replay it. Which I guess, so many years after the original game came out, it makes sense that maybe you'd want to revisit the entire thing. But like, I was watching some streamer play it and I was like, oh yeah, I remember all of this stuff. Like, I don't really care that much about revisiting this part of the game, but yeah, like the Phantom Liberty stuff does seem cool. And like, people have pointed out like the difference just in terms of quality of like facial animations and like dialogue between Cyberpunk and Starfield, just like where Starfield feels a little bit stuck back in the era of Skyrim, and like Cyberpunk feels like a modern game where like you go talk to Idris Elba and he looks like Idris Elba, and it looks like you're just like talking to a person, he's looking around and is a little way more dynamic of a like character animation for the dialogue scene.
Yeah.
With Starfield, it's very much a character just like standing there staring at you without blinking, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I get. I don't necessarily think that like I'm gonna, give Starfield like a failing grade based solely on that, but like I can understand the criticism. And then the other game that came out that we're gonna definitely be talking about is Cocoon.
Yes. We can talk about it right now if you want.
Yeah, let's get into it. So this is a like indie puzzle game that's on Game Pass. It is a you're like a little bug, like humanoid bug man.
You get
And
little wings.
yeah, and you pick up these orbs and you can sort of put them down on different holders and go into the orb. And there's like different puzzles that you're working to solve. And you will find additional orbs, and you can sort of, it's almost like Inception, where you can like pick up an orb, go into another orb and like stash it there. And so now you're carrying two orbs, but you can sort of go layers deep like that. And each of the orbs sort of has their own innate ability that you unlock by solving the different puzzles. And so like the sort of red or orange one that you have that you start with, its ability is like you have this sort of area of effect around you, and that while you walk across like an invisible bridge, the area of effect sort of reveals the bridge and allows you to walk across it. And so you can sort of get from point A to point B that way. And like the purple one, I think, allows you to like, you put that down, you go to an area that is like beyond, like there's these sort of bars that you can't pass through with an orb, but you can walk through without one. And then on the other side, you might find like a plant that's like sort of an orb, and you can grab that and lift it up, and that then the purple orb becomes that one. And so you can sort of teleport the orb around that way. It's very, very cool. I don't know. What were you thinking of this?
I liked it. So I'm not 100% done with it. I think I'm like 90% done, but I just consistently kept, like, I couldn't put it down, basically.
Yeah, I felt very much the same way.
Because it wasn't, there were only like 2 or 3 parts where I was like, man, I have no idea what to do here. And I just sort of had to sit with it. But the thing about this game is that everything is a crazy thing. And so I got stuck, and I was like, part of me was like, oh, I should Google what to do. But then I was like, what do I even Google? Like, where am I? What am I doing? How would I even conceptually talk about this? So I couldn't basically Google a solution. I just had to figure it out. And it was it makes you feel smart, because a lot of this stuff is like, a thing I got really trapped on, and maybe you got trapped on this too, is there's a part where every once in a while, you have to get a little drone that like hovers next to you, and then that drone can remove gates, and it can also slot into a thing to open a door. And the goal is usually, once you get one of those little drones, you have to go to one of those things to get it to slot in, and then you fight a boss. And there was a part where I had to get to one of those things to slot it in, but there are these like little enemies that will trap the drone if you walk through them. And I could not figure out how to walk through to get up to the thing to slot it in. And then for like 10 minutes, I was like, I'm not really sure what to do. I kept going into different orbs and trying to figure it out. And then I realized I had to go into an orb and trap the little drone within that orb, and then carry the orb past, and then go back into the orb, get the thing, bring it out. It's a whole bunch. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to conceptualize, which I think it makes it a really cool game.
Yeah, the like just jumping back and forth through the orbs is like such a crazy like visual thing that happens as well. It's a little akin to like in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, where you like go through a rift where it just like you pull the screen towards you, and it suddenly becomes a different environment. Yeah. It's very, very cool to look at. It definitely has a very polished look and feel. I was very impressed by that. But yeah, it does get very kind of trippy almost, where you like have to think like multiple layers deep. Like there's not to spoil things, but like later on in the game, there are like some puzzles that require like the white orb has the ability to like fire some sort of projectile out of it, depending on like where you're standing, or if you've put it on a specific type of holder, it will like fire out a projectile. And you have to hit the green orb, which will it will go into the actual orb. It doesn't just hit the orb, it actually goes into the physical space within the orb, And so now the projectile is within that space, that like different environment of that other orb, and you shoot it through that to hit a specific thing within that orb. And the game really plays with that, where you have to think multiple layers deep. Okay, so if I have this white orb fire a projectile and it goes into the red orb, it will also then go into the green orb that's in the red orb, and it will hit this target, and it will like move this object for me so that I can get where I need to go. And so it's very like trippy and interesting how that all works. And it's such a cool concept, I think. But yeah, sometimes it is a little bit hard to wrap your head around what, like, okay, do I need to use this ability? Do I need to like go into this other orb to be able to do this thing? But I always found that even when I struggled and got to a point where I was like, you know what, I don't think I can figure out what the answer is. If I just sat with it long enough and tried enough different things, I would eventually figure it out. And so, yeah, it is one of those games that like is very clever with its like puzzle design, such that it makes you feel very smart when you figure it out.
It's cool. I almost am thinking we should put it on the top 10 builder.
I agree. I was going to suggest the same. I like it better than Viewfinder, which was the other sort of trippy indie puzzle game. I would have it higher than Viewfinder, which we currently have sitting at number 9.
I think that's a great place for it, actually.
I would even put it... I think I would put it above Wild Hearts or maybe even Dead Space Remake, which we have at 6 and 7.
I'm comfortable with that.
I'm that high on it.
I haven't finished it yet. I'm very excited to do the last 10% of it. But yeah, it was a revelation. One of my favorite things I played this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so high on it. I might even put it at 5 above Pikmin 4.
So I'll defer to you because I didn't play Pikmin 4. So
I liked Pikmin 4 quite a bit. Like I said earlier in the show, I was a little bit frustrated with like the timer concept that for whatever reason they still have not gotten rid of. I think it's a great game and it's very fun and it's like such a very chill thing to play, but it did not blow me away the way this game did.
Yeah.
So and it is short. I don't know what your runtime is at, but I think I finished it in just under like 3 hours. So you could play this through in one sitting.
I'm probably close to that. I haven't looked at actually, I wonder if I can see on my Xbox app.
You might be able to. But yeah, like Viewfinder, a pretty similar concept where you're sort of jumping into like different areas and you're sort of using them to sort of change the environment around you a little bit. But I think like that game stumbles where it tries to tell a story and it's just kind of not great at doing that. And I think it would have been much better if it was more level based and it just stuck to the puzzle elements itself and concentrated on that instead. And Cocoon basically does that. It does not, at least from what I can tell, it doesn't seem to be telling a story that is comprehensible. But I'm totally fine with that because I think the puzzle design of it is so good that I definitely think I liked it better than Viewfinder, which I still liked that game, but
I cannot figure out how to see my hour count on my phone, unfortunately. But yeah, wherever you want to put it, as long as it's somewhere, I'm into it.
I'm going to put it at number 5. So we haven't put Starfield on this list yet because we're not done playing that and not done talking about it yet. But so for now, our top 10 is Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at number 1, Final Fantasy 16 at number 2, Fire Emblem Engage at 3. I might drop that one. I think recency bias has led me to say that I think Fire Emblem Engage is too high. Dare I say that Dredge and Cocoon deserve to be above that, and maybe even Pikmin 4.
I'll take it. I famously don't like Fire Emblem, so.
I was going to say, a Dead Space remake, I feel like people will consider it heresy if we have that too low, but also it is a remake, and I'm a little bit inclined to not weigh them as highly as like new games. I'm going to drop Fire Emblem down. We're doing it on the fly. I like a Dragon Ishin. I have not finished that game, but it does fall off the list.
Yeah.
By adding Cocoon. Maybe I will play more of that game at some point and decide it deserves to be back on the list. But for now, it has fallen off. So our top 10. Tears of the Kingdom, number 1. Final Fantasy 16, number 2. Dredge at 3. Cocoon at 4. Pikmin 4 at 5. Fire Emblem Engage at 6. Dead Space Remake at 7. Wild Hearts at 8. Metroid Prime Remastered at 9. And Viewfinder at 10. And this will obviously be changing over the course of time because this is an ongoing segment.
We will put Starfield on here eventually.
Yeah, Starfield's going to be on there eventually, and there's a bunch more games to play this year that we'll be talking about.
Yeah.
Do we want to get into Starfield?
Yes, let's talk about it. So you have completed the main story.
I have, yeah. I'm hesitant to get into it because I know you have not finished it yet. But
no, I've been doing mostly side stuff.
I'm into the part where things get interesting in terms of like what the New Game Plus offers and why it's set up the way it is and all of that. And I don't know how I can talk about it without spoiling things.
I might be there in a couple, maybe like 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to decide if I say certain things, will it be too much? But I would say it feels less like like an ongoing thing and more of a Groundhog Day type thing.
Oh, interesting. Because
you get in there and it's like, I mean, it's trying to sort of have its cake and eat it too, where it's like, this is a New Game Plus. And in a traditional New Game Plus, you just kind of start over, but you have all of your skills and abilities from the previous run. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's doing that as well, except you don't have all your items. You just have like the skills and your space powers that you've picked up. But everything else resets. And because it's trying to be like a persistent character across your New Game Pluses, you occasionally will have like a dialogue option. It was like, yeah, I've been here before. I've seen this. I know what's going on here.
This is my New Game Plus.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically the New Game Plus dialogue option. And it does feel a little like Groundhog Day. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, because like you'll occasionally have conversations with people where it doesn't give you an option to give the New Game Plus dialogue option. And you're like, I really should have had an option here. And it doesn't give it to you. So it's a little hit or miss on some of that. But yeah, it's I've heard there are also like unique options that you'll run into in the New Game Plus things. I've run into some where like you'll meet somebody else that's like, oh yeah, I know what's going on here. But like most of the time it's pretty similar. And there are some like really weird like universe states that happen because of the New Game Plus option, which I'm very interested to find out. I think they needed to go farther with that. And we'll get into why that is once you get there. Because I don't want to get into that until you've had a chance to see it for yourself. But yeah, we'll probably at some point have like a massive spoiler discussion where we really get into all of like everything that happens in the main story and all of that. But for now, we can talk about any faction quest lines that you've finished.
I did the UC Vanguard. I ended up telling everybody that that guy exists and he should be executed. So that was great. I started the Ryujin one as well as the Crimson Fleet one, but I don't know which one I'm going to continue to pursue next. Right now I'm still on Neon. I did a fair bit of shipbuilding. So I liked the Star Eagle, and so I wanted to use that as a template. I didn't want to totally start a new ship.
Yeah,
and so
I kind of did something similar, but I didn't do a whole lot with it. I basically just added habs for the workbenches.
That's what I did. Yeah, I redid the habs because I hate ladders in the ship. And so I created a way to not have any ladders, which was great.
Oh, really? Like you flattened out the ship?
I still have 2 layers, but I use that one cockpit that is 2 stories and has stairs in it.
Oh, really?
So
Man, I need to look at that.
That one's great. It's on the Mars one. It's on the new homestead. It's called like the Cabot. But what that allows you to do is I can immediately get into the bottom of it, and then I have like my captain's quarters and my like workshop, or I can go straight into the bottom layer of the cockpit, go up the cockpit, and then right behind the cockpit, I found a really cool like navigation room that reminds me of Mass Effect. So I have that where all my people hang out. And then I also put my dock up there too, so that when I dock places, I'm immediately in that room and I can go right to the cockpit. So I'm almost never on ladders, which is really my main thing that I wanted.
I feel like that navigation thing needs to be like more interactable than just pulling up the star map.
I agree.
Like I think what they need to add is the ability to assign crew members to your other ships that you own.
Yeah.
And be able to go to that navigation menu and like send them out on little side missions that they do sort of over time in the background. Sort of similar to like sending your frigates out on missions in No Man's Sky.
Yeah, that would be great. There's so much there's so many things they could do with DLCs. Like they've really, the palette they have is endless. They could do so much stuff. I still think they will hopefully add a vehicle eventually for riding around planets, because that would make it so much better.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially like when you're going around trying to collect those anomalies and things. Like you do a lot of that in the game, and a lot of your time is just spent running from your ship to the like the source of the anomaly, and they could cut down the travel time there immensely by just giving you like some sort of vehicle. But
it's I'm still really liking it. I mainly run around with Barrett, who I think is maybe one of the best what's it called? Companions. Just because, and I don't know if this is what happens with all companions, but a lot of times I'll be having a conversation with someone and then it will cut to Barrett, who frankly is usually facing the incorrect direction.
Or he's like around a wall or something.
Yeah. And he'll say some nonsense, like he'll make a pun or something and be like, well, looks like it's time for some grilled cheese on this one. And then it cuts back to the person I'm talking to, who is facing Barrett, and then will slowly turn back to me and just be like, anyway, and start talking again. And in my headcanon, I like to think that that's only happening because Barrett is dumb and is making a dumb joke. But more realistically, probably that happens with any companion, and they just say anything to get through any dialogue option that could be there. But I really like his little asides.
It does happen with all the characters, but Barrett's are more that sort of jokey tone that you're referring to. Yeah. So, like, for sure, that's like one of the great things about having Barrett with you as a companion. But I have played probably the vast majority of my first playthrough with Andreja, because she was the character that I romanced. Yeah. And I really liked her as a character, and so she does that as well, where they'll like interject and have like comments on like while you're in mid conversation with other people, and sometimes they respond to her and sometimes they don't, but yeah, Barrett's are usually like sort of funny asides that the character just like moves back on, just kind of moves on, like whatever, I'm just not even gonna acknowledge what he just said.
Great to have around.
Yeah, well, and I don't want to spoil things, but he eventually gets an ability in the game that makes him even more worthwhile having around as your companion, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, so I'm in the New Game Plus, the first New Game Plus, and like I said, it does feel a little like Groundhog Day, but my understanding is that you're basically doing these New Game Pluses to like sort of gain more of those space anomaly abilities.
Yeah.
And so you're sort of going through each of them and you're acquiring them. And I think there is maybe even a little bit of a bug happening there where like right now, you can go into where like your space magic ability is, and it'll tell you how many undiscovered like temples where the anomalies are. And it will like, I think it will basically get stuck on a number until you have a certain number that you've not found yet. But you cannot, no amounts of going back to Vladimir to ask for more locations will sort of resolve that. It'll just keep, you'll just eventually run out, and it'll still say that you have some left to find. So that's kind of annoying. But yeah, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, so basically, a thing I've run into, I don't know if you've run into this or not, but a lot of the time I will run into a weird thing where I'm trying to do a quest with somebody. I think maybe it was no, it wasn't the UC Vanguard. It was the Crimson Fleet one while I was working for UC Sysdev. Have you finished that one?
No, I went into that prison and got that slate that describes the big hall or whatever, but I haven't gone to get that person.
Are you working with Sysdef on this, or are you just doing Crimson Fleet?
So far, I'm working with Sysdef. The first thing you have to do where you find that guy and kill him, I told him to go hide out with Sysdef, and everybody liked it.
Yeah, I did that as well. But basically, in that questline, there's one mission that sort of requires some stealth, and I had Barrett with me at the time, and he I didn't have the option to tell him to wait, and I couldn't figure out why. And I went through that, and he just went on a murder spree. And I was like, well, I didn't shoot anyone. So I went back to UC Sysdef, and they were like, look, this is unexceptable. You just open fire on all these innocent people. And so they basically threw me in the brig, and that was sort of the end of the quest line. So I was like, this isn't how this is going to go for me. So I reloaded a save, and the answer was, the reason I couldn't tell Barrett to wait was because it thought I was in the middle of his companion quest line.
Oh.
So I had to go do his quest line and then come back so that I could stealth by myself to get through that without my companion murdering a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So stuff like that will happen. Or there was one where I was doing the sort of commitment quest for Andreja. And she's like, let's go to this planet. And so there's an icon to go there. You go there, and then it's okay, you're in the right spot. Now talk to Andreja. And I would go try to talk to her, but the dialogue wouldn't come up. She just said some line that I was like, I don't know what that means. Why are you saying that? And the answer to that was the game thought we were in the middle of this other quest line. And she was supposed to be there, and she heard the dialogue that she was saying that I couldn't understand was related to that.
Oh.
And so I had to go back and do that quest line first before it would let me go on and do this other thing. And so you occasionally will just run into things where it's is the game bugged? Is this not going to work? And it's not bugged. It just thinks you're trying to do something else first, and it won't let you proceed until you do that other thing. And so there's just these weird sort of blockages that you run into, because the game thinks you're in the middle of this other quest line.
Yeah.
And it won't let you advance a different quest line until you've advanced this other one. And so that's sort of a frustrating thing that I've run into multiple times in this game. And usually you think it's bugged, but it's definitely not. So you have to try to go through your quest log and be like, okay, what does the game think I'm doing right now?
Yeah.
Before you can proceed. But so that's kind of an annoying thing, but
overall, I'm still loving it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even for the small frustrations that I've run into with it, I still find myself wanting to play more of it, even though I have finished the main story and I'm new game. I'm in the new game plus right now, which I don't want to talk too much about. We'll get into that later, but I still find myself wanting to play more of it. So it's it's still got its hooks in me, I think. But leave off the conversation there, or did you have anything else?
No, I'm good. The only other thing I wanted to speculate on is, when do you think we'll get the first DLC announcement? Do you think it'll be at the Game Awards, or is that too early? That's
a good question. They did, they have their quality of life improvements and their little updates that they're doing. And I feel like they've talked about adding stuff with some of those updates. So I feel like they do have a fairly aggressive plan for updates and add-on content. So we'll see. I'm very curious. That would be a good time for them to drop hey, here's like the future of Starfield. Here's
Yeah.
like a big DLC plan, or even if they had like some sort of roadmap that they could show us of what they plan to add, that would be great. Anything else you've been playing, watching?
You know, my girlfriend and I watched all the way through that Pera Talks show, which was on Adult Swim a couple years ago. It's all on Max now. There's only 3 seasons, and every episode's only 11 minutes long, except for like I think 2 episodes, which are regular like 22-minute length. But a great little show. I really, really like it. It's very chill, very Midwest, and Joe Pera is very funny. So if you're looking for just like a really chill fall time show to watch, check out Joe Pera Talks to You on Max. That's my parting wisdom also, is go check out Joe Pera.
I watched the latest season of What We Do in the Shadows. Did you watch that?
Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah, I like that show.
I like it
think
too.
it's
I'm
fun.
excited for them to hopefully keep making it forever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, hopefully they keep going with it, because I would love another season next year. But and then I did finish Trine 5.
Whoa.
Very fun game. I really like the it's like a side-scrolling puzzle game. Some of the puzzles got rough because you end up with a lot of like abilities and character abilities, and so sometimes it's easy to forget like, oh yeah, I have this one thing I can do. And sometimes it like doesn't train you well enough to like be able to use the skill. Like later in the game, there's one skill you get where the knight with his shield, you can hold your shield up and do different things with it, but you can also like click in the thumbstick and suddenly like a beam of light will shoot out of it. And like when you get that skill, it basically trains you that, okay, you can light up an area if it's foggy and it'll dispense the fog for you. And what it doesn't really tell you is that it also sort of freezes objects in midair if it passes through the beam. And you need to use that for a puzzle later on in the game. And I was like so confused. I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, okay, there's this skill that I didn't really know I had that is key to solving this puzzle. But so sometimes it can get a little obtuse in that way, that you always sort of worry about puzzle games like getting late in the game. I feel like sometimes it like borders on that, which is not great. But otherwise, the rest of the game is great. It's like a very nice universe, great music. The 3 characters are all fun to play as, and all you can swap to them at any time and use each of their different abilities to solve the puzzles and everything. Great like couch co-op game. Highly recommend if you like side-scrolling puzzle games or if you like co-op games. Very fun to play. I kind of want to put it on our top 10. I don't know where.
Whoa.
This may sound crazy, but since neither of us finished Metroid Prime Remastered, how married to that being on our list are we?
Not super married. I mean, it is a remaster, so
It is a
I'm fine to
remaster.
remove it.
I think I'm going to remove it from the number 9 spot and put Trine 5 there.
Do it.
Just ahead of Viewfinder, which I also liked. And the other thing I've been playing a decent amount of here over there, just like off and on in very short bursts over the last like couple of weeks, is F-Zero 99.
Whoa.
Which is that Nintendo Online sort of battle royale take on the SNES era F-Zero game. Which
I've heard it's very addictive.
It is. It's very fun, not only because you can like quickly jump in and do a race in like 2 minutes and then just like, okay, now I'm moving on with my day. But also there's like a bunch of unlocks. There's like a bunch of cosmetic unlocks that you get for each of the vehicles. There are 4 vehicles in the game, and they sort of have different stats. And it's pretty balanced in that regard, where you can sort of still stand a chance, but the play style is a little bit different for each of them. And so, yeah, there's like the main 99 race where you're racing against 99 other players and sort of battle royale style. You're trying to get through and not sort of crash out. And mechanically, that's all very fun, and like it's simple, but like, what is the phrase? Easy to learn, difficult to master, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's a bunch of different unlocks, but there's also like on a rotation, there's like different sort of special game modes. So there's like the Grand Prix, which is like multiple races, but there's also this like team battle one where it's like green team versus pink team, and you're just randomly assigned to a team, and you drive around and you try to crash out the other carts or racers, but you're also trying to finish ahead of them as well. And you get points for like, because you have this like spin attack that you can do, and you get points every time you hit somebody with your spin attack. And so that one's I've found has been pretty fun to play. And yeah, I don't know, I really like the pixel art style. I like the music to it. I like the menus. Like there's these like hand-drawn characters of like Captain Falcon, and every time there's like a splash screen that's like, hey, the weekend, Grand Prix are going to happen more often, there's like this like hand-drawn character that's basically like shouting the announcement at you, and it looks like 80s 90s hand-drawn anime. It's like a really cool visual style that I would love if they brought back F-Zero at some point. If they like really leaned into that as the art style, it would be awesome. But yeah, F-Zero, the SNES one, was one of the like pleasant surprises I found on the Super NES Classic when I picked that up. I don't know, I don't get into racing games in a big way, but like if I'm gonna play one, it needs to be like a super arcadey one, and this is about as arcadey as it gets. So I've had a good time with it, and supposedly they're adding more tracks to it soon. So with these 99 games that Nintendo does for Nintendo Online, you a little bit worry, is this going to be like the Mario one that they shut down very quickly? Is it going to be the Pac-Man one that wasn't very well liked and also got shut down? Or is it going to be the Tetris one that is like still being supported and is still going? And I hope that this one is more like the Tetris one that just like keeps getting supported and stays or keeps running for years and years. But anyway, that's all I've got for this week, and you've already given your parting wisdom, so I guess we will just catch you on the next one.
We'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye.
Goodbye.